Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fundraising Nest Maven time. And today I have someone who I admire a lot. We have one of our Mavens, Rebecca Scelly, with us, joining us today from Sydney. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Michelle.
So, I think you're incredible. I'm just going to say that. I've interviewed so many Mavens across the world, and I think when I met you, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, just blown away by your knowledge. The knowledge you have is incredible, and I think it would be great for our community to find out a bit about you. So, Rebecca, who are you, and what do you do?
I'm Rebecca. I feel like I'm at an AA meeting. I'm a fundraiser. I think, like everyone, I fell into fundraising sideways, working at the Central Hawke's Bay Settlers Museum. And then they tell me I also need to raise money to keep the place open. So I started there and just kept on going. That was about 20 years ago now, maybe a bit more. So currently working with Greenpeace East Asia and been with them for a long time now, and really always learning about different types of fundraising, different types of ways of running a charity in general. So really enjoying that.
I know when you came back to Wellington and we connected, you had just spent quite a long time actually in Asia.
Yeah. So I moved to Hong Kong actually for my husband's work, and I reached out to some people on LinkedIn and said, hey, has anyone got any connections in Hong Kong? I'd love to work for a NGO again. And managed to get an interview with Greenpeace East Asia in Hong Kong, and just worked with them ever since. So that's how I got into it.
That's incredible, because you did a session a few years ago in New Zealand around the digital. It was a TED Talk style 15 minutes, and I think it blew my mind around the digital progression that you had witnessed in Asia, 5-6 years ago, and where it. I think one takeaway to go away from it was that pretty much all fundraising in Asia was digital based. Is that a true?
Not all, definitely not all. And it's things have gotten harder. As I'm sure everyone's aware, costs have certainly gone up and continue to rise for all sorts of social media. And even things like sending emails can be more expensive now than previously. So it's all about diversification, and having digital as a strong part of your mix is definitely seen as the gold standard in our work in East Asia. And I'm sure that it's similar in other places as well, but it's not taken over as the only thing or anything like that.
You were in Asia, and then you moved back to New Zealand for a short while, and now I followed you to Australia. You went just a few months before I did to Sydney. You relocated again, for your husband's work. But what's in the short time you've been in Australia, is there any clear differences to fundraising in Australia versus New Zealand and Asia?
Well, I actually went via Brazil as well, and did 6 months working in Greenpeace Brazil, which was quite the eye opener, I can tell you that. Well, it's a difficult question for me, because I'm doing the same work in New Zealand with Greenpeace East Asia as I am in Australia. I have worked in Australia previously. I worked for a while with Muscular Dystrophy New South Wales. And there wasn't a huge difference, to be honest, apart from some legal things around state-based requirements. Apart from that, the fundamentals of fundraising are very similar between both countries.
Yeah. So one of the things we chatted a couple of months ago now, when you came on board with the Nest, and it's professional development. That's what we're here to do, is advocate, empower, share resources and tools, but also give fundraisers an understanding of the professional development that they should have, the impact it can make. I know for me, as a fundraiser, I haven't actually, when I first started, I didn't get many PD opportunities. I worked for Save the Children in Scotland many years ago, and that's when I was a youth worker. And I do know that Save the Children, big organisation, a huge part of our work was professional development. They had the greatest internal training. And so I know you've got some insights into that. So I just want to discuss a little bit about especially the international kind of organisations and the process that they have for their staff. Could you describe just a little bit about what is just standard expectations in professional development?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive advocate of it, and it's partly because it makes you feel really good about the daily slog. You connect with people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, or very similar, and you've got similar experiences, and you're like, oh, so it's not just me. we've got shared experiences, and we can talk about how have you dealt with that? How have you dealt with that? So it's also the connections you make in a learning environment as well. Certainly from a professional development point of view, it's a key part of staff retention, because if people are feeling as if they're not going anywhere, then they're going to be looking for another job. They're going to be looking for another challenge, most people. So, certainly the work that we do overseas, it's encouraged. We've got some key objectives this year that we're following, and the very first one is staff development. The very first one in our entire department is staff development, and it's all about keeping and retaining really good staff and encouraging them to grow at the pace and where they want to grow and that sort of thing. We've got some team members who are parents, and they might be middle-aged parents, and to be quite honest, they're really happy doing the work that they're doing. And they don't necessarily want to have more responsibility. They might do later, but right now they're quite comfortable. But that doesn't stop their professional development. They can still learn and grow at the pace they want. And then we've got others who are quite ambitious and are like, throw it at me. Look, what can I do? What can I do? And, can I get into the fast growth program, which is something that Greenpeace offers? Or can I do this or that? And it's like, let's encourage that. Let's go for it. So it's so good for staff retention, and it means that the organisation is growing and your fundraising is developing, and they're coming back with these ideas. They're like, wow, never heard of that. That sounds really great. Let's give it a go. So it's the bringing back to the organisation as well.
It is, absolutely. And I think with some of the international NGOs, am I right in saying that they can also see their professional development on a scale that's attached to remuneration, so that's transparent and that it's open? They can see that if I do this, this would be the pay kind of scale I go into.
Different organisations do it in different ways, and the UN sort of benchmark that a lot of them follow is a salary structure based on competencies. And so right from your job description when you apply for a job exactly what the competencies are for that role and at what level you need to be at. And so if you want to change roles or if you want to grow into a more senior position, you can see exactly which competencies you need to work on because of your 360 reviews and that sort of thing. And you can also see exactly how that fits into your pay scale. So the UN developed this, and many international NGOs have adopted it, and it's completely transparent. And whenever someone increases their position, and it might mean that they're still in the same position but they're at a higher competency level, so therefore they get a higher salary, it's celebrated, it's shared, and it's celebrated throughout the whole organisation.
It's reported and recognised.
And then there's all these people are like, congratulations, it's great, it makes you feel really good.
It is. And why, I guess the size and the scale of these organisations allow them to do that, but why do you think smaller organisations, medium organisations don't have those same structures? I mean, surely there must be ways they can implement it in smaller organisations.
The organisations that I've worked with that are smaller, it's about survival so much. It's about how can we raise enough money so we can keep the doors open tomorrow? How can we raise enough money so we can actually support more people than what we're supporting right now? Their focus is so much on the mission. And that's a real shame. I'm not sure how to break out of that, whether there's different ways to offer professional development. Certainly cheap options are always good. And I know that I was running a few training programs myself in the last couple of years. And whenever organisations that are smaller would come along, they got so much out of it. And these guys were just soaking it up, asking questions, talking to the people in the table around them, really gaining that benefit. But also in the back of their mind, they knew that there was a whole lot of work piling up for them, that because there was no one else to do it when they went back to their desks. So I feel for smaller organisations, I really do. And I think it's a bigger question.
It's huge, and that's one of the things we want to, through these conversations, is we hope that while you're working today, you're listening to this conversation and you're going, actually, I'm going to find out a bit more about that. What is this UN? Because, you know, yes, you don't have to go work for an international organisation to get these, but how can you maybe educate your organisation? Do CEOs know that this structure is in place for fundraising teams and other places? And that's how the only way we can make change is by understanding what's there. How could we do little bits of this and look at the success of it? I mean, why are the international organisations so successful? I would like to think partly because of this, partly because they know how to look after their staff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's part of it. And you've got me inspired as well. I'm thinking, I could share some links on the Nest, the fundraising Nest of different ways that is available, publicly available. So yeah, I'll jump in and do that later.
I'd love you to jump in and do that. And so when we talk about professional development, I think you're right. And it's not about just going to the event. One of the biggest frustrations, like you just mentioned there, they come, they're hungry, but at the same time, they're like, I've got all this work to do. But also the boss is like, okay, you've done your PD, well done, but they don't give them a chance to implement what they've learned. And I think that it's almost as important as learning is trusting your team to implement what they've learned.
Yeah, I completely agree. And sharing it back, having this space to be able to go, okay, last week I went to a training session and I learned some really valuable things. I'm just going to spend half an hour in the next team meeting talking about what it is, the key things that I learned.
Absolutely. And one of the things we want to start here, we're working towards, is Freedom Friday. My husband's a web developer, I've probably mentioned it before, and he, on a Friday, is his R&D day, research and development. It doesn't have to be coded jobs and things. And he gets the whole day. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we had just 2 hours on a Friday afternoon, fundraisers everywhere, go Freedom Friday, right, we get 2 hours to do research, learn what we want, and then what we want to do in the hub is signposts. Because I think a lot of people, if they had 2 hours, are like, okay, what will I do? And so finding the resources and the tools and the easy to digest stuff is what we want to do in the hub, and create links and things for things that you can learn. Books, I mean, reading books is incredible. I think most of the Mavens I've spoken to, particularly the kind of, the more experienced ones, they've got hundreds and hundreds of books, they've learned, and I think bringing back some reading. But again, on that Monday or whatever, saying to the team, this is what I did on my Freedom Friday and this is what I learned, because it's just about learning and sharing is so important.
Yep. Maybe we need a book corner, because I do have a favourite fundraising book and it's called The Zen of Fundraising. And it's each page just gives you a bit of wisdom, and it's lovely. It's a perfect thing for a kind of a Zen moment.
Yeah, we've got Leo's book club, so Leo Orland
great.
month reviews a book, and we're putting them in there. But yeah, book lists would be a great idea, actually. Definitely reading corner, book corner is what we need. So Rebecca, aside from working at Greenpeace and doing all the incredible things, a couple of things about fundraising. What excites you the most about the future of fundraising?
Ooh, the future of fundraising. Well, from what I've learned in the last few years, nothing's stable, and that could be quite scary and quite difficult to kind of face. But on the other flip side, it's like, what's coming? I don't know what's coming next. We used to, pre-COVID, we'd quite comfortably do 5-year budget projections, detailed for next year, but pretty confident of what's going to happen over the next 4 years after that. Now it's year by year, to be honest, because things are just changing so much. So I guess the unknown is both exciting and scary, but it's about really owning that and having those honest conversations and saying, look, we can't just keep doing what we've always done and expect the same results, the old adage. But how can we massage? How can we adjust? What's going on with other organisations? How can we really keep the level that we need to be at, even though we don't really know what the fundraising is going to look like even next year? Yeah. So I don't know. That it's exciting for me, but
change comes opportunity, doesn't it? And I've recently been on the new local radio station here, and one of the topics twice now has been the exposure, I guess, good and bad of GoFundMe, and the challenging is these kind of models going to take away from traditional fundraising, and it's kind of led me to research a bit more about it. And I guess what I learned around these fundraising platforms is, yes, they exist. I don't think they're taken away from the money that's going to charity because of the way they operate. There's people where people would have lent somebody money or maybe help give them some groceries. I think there was a big study showing that I think 60% of people give to their friends. So it's not necessarily the GoFundMes to what they would give to charities. But the bottom line was that it's instant, it's easy, it makes them feel good. They can instantly get a connection, they can get feedback on the story. And more than anything, it made giving a good experience. And my response to that is charities have to up their game. They have to make giving a good, easy, enjoyable experience to keep up with these these kind of GoFundMe pages that are growing significantly across the world. So it was an interesting journey for me to work out why should we be afraid of these GoFundMe platforms, because some of this research indicates that it's going to grow exponentially.
But also, how can we harness that? How can we harness that knowledge and that sort of thing? One thing I've really noticed this year, and we always knew that with an older population, there was going to come a time that things like legacies and major gifts were really going to be at the forefront of our fundraising. And for me, it's changed this year. These things have really started to come out, and there's been calls from people to say like a random donation, $10,000, $20,000. And when we call them up to say, thank you very much, they're like, well, this is your last one. I'm not sure if I'll be here next year, which is quite a heartbreaking thing. But these are happening over and over again. And more legacies are being notified about as well of people not necessarily passing away, but really thinking about, right, this is the time of life I'm going to be, I'm going to make sure my will is up to date and make sure I've got the charities I want in there. So now is the hour for that big philanthropy.
And with the demise of checks we noticed in New Zealand through the studies that we did over there, although there wasn't enough data to show actual evidence, there was a significant trend in those check donors who no longer wanted to donate, but they left a gift in their will. So it's critical to look at your check user. In Australia, it's coming soon, the demise of the end of checks here. Look at your check donors and talk to them about their legacies, because that is their frame of mind. I'm not going to donate the way that I've always done my whole life. I'm not going to transition digitally, so I'm going to do something more meaningful. Finally, I'll leave it a gift in my will. So I think that's a really good one for fundraisers to be thinking about, for sure.
And I guess my point is, it's not theoretical anymore. It's happening. It's happening in an increased way. So jump while you can, really, to talk to the people that are really interested in your organisation about those larger gifts.
Brilliant advice. So Rebecca, tell us a bit about Rebecca Scelly. That's when she's not a fundraiser. What does Rebecca do on the weekend?
What do I do on the weekend? Well, I live in a lovely place in Sydney that we are able to go to a lot of sport. FIFA World Cup is on at the moment. I've got the second game I'm going to tonight, England versus Denmark. Go Denmark. We went to the first Matildas game as well. I think we've got 5 games lined up for this World Cup. So we're quite a sporting family. My 9-year-old daughter loves to play football as well, but she's also a bit of a drama queen and singer and that sort of thing. So lots of family time, hanging out with our bunnies and enjoying life.
Awesome. Yeah, my eldest daughter is mad on football, Bryony, so she's been to every game in New Zealand, and she's got tickets for the semi-final and the final, so she's coming to Melbourne to hang out for a few days for the semi-final before she jumps over to Sydney for the final. So yeah.
We've got finals tickets as well, so I'm hoping that the Matildas can get in. I mean, it'd be great if the football ferns could get in, the New Zealand team. Oh,
yes.
New Zealand v Australia. That would be a dream final. I'd have to challenge myself who to go for, but I think I'm still a Kiwi girl.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, when it comes to it, yeah, definitely. Final question I always ask everyone at the end of Maven time: what advice would you give to your younger self that you didn't know then that you know now?
Oh, where to start? I was going to say keep learning, but I have kept learning. There's so much knowledge in the sector, to network as much as you possibly can, and because it's a sector unlike any other. There's so much sharing, there's so much support, there's so much love for each other, to be honest. I know it sounds a bit corny, but we know that we do a hard job and we support each other. So the more we can be, especially if you're a sole fundraiser in an organisation, the more you can be around other fundraisers, the happier you will be in your work, I believe.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to catching you soon, and do share some links about PD in the Community Hub. Thank you. It's been great having Rebecca Scelly with us today, and enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks.